Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome into the 143. Coming at you live with episode 203. Nick, how are we doing today?
We're doing good. Coming after the good Thanksgiving weekend. Hope everyone had a good Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of watching football. Cowboys putting on a show. There were some good games this weekend, and we're here to talk about it all.
Yes, we are. Our stat of the week is really kind of just a news bit for the week, brought to you by our sponsor, Angels Logistics, as well as a one-time sponsor from Pond Hill Farm, Christmas Tree Farm out in Canton, Texas. Come create some great memories cutting your own tree or pick a fresh cut North Carolina Fraser fir. Open this weekend, Friday through Sunday. Free entry Friday night if you want to just go enjoy the festivities, get in the Christmas spirit. Feel like you're just in a Christmas movie. Just go visit the tree farm out at Pond Hill Farm in Canton, Texas. News clip of the week is, Nick, they finally flexed a Sunday night football game in December. In a few weeks, they flexed out of an Eagles-Commanders Sunday night football game. Imagine how boring that one would be. And they're putting the Bears-Packers game in Sunday night. That's just something I wanted to highlight because Nick and I complain time and time again that they do not flex these Sunday night football games, and they finally did. So
obviously,
it's always
the Commanders are not good, and then the Eagles are not good either. They're horrible to watch on prime time. Obviously, Bears-Packers, with the way that those two teams have been playing, not amazing primetime game, but it will definitely be 10 times better, and that's a more meaningful divisional game than Eagles Commanders. So, good on them for finally figuring it out.
The Eagles do play this Monday night against the Chargers. I think this is their last primetime game of the season, if I'm not mistaken. So we will have to do it one more time. Monday Night Football, Eagles. But other than that, thankfully they took them off that Sunday night.
Your player of the week, he didn't put up insane stats, but just notable to have his return after being injured for a while. Joe Burrow threw 24 passes for 261 yards and 2 touchdowns in a Bengals win, 32-14 over the Ravens on Thanksgiving Day. Not a crazy stat line, but it's just nice to see Joe Burrow back in action. That offense clicking. They move on to 4-8. Obviously, that record looks pretty horrendous, but with the way the AFC North has been, you're not necessarily out of the rat race yet. There is still a chance for you to do something if you're Cincinnati, but we'll see how the rest of the season goes. But things are looking up as they've got Joe Burrow back healthy, so that offense firing on all cylinders once again.
Absolutely. Good to see him back out there. All right, we'll dive into it. We're only talking about a few games tonight. First game of Thanksgiving, Packers-Lions. The Packers come in and just absolutely dice up the Lions. The Lions lose Amon-Ra St. Brown pretty early in the game. It might have been their first drive, or at least in the first quarter, to an ankle injury. That is important because the Cowboys play the Lions this Thursday night, and it might be without star receiver Amon-Ra. But the Packers look good. I think Jordan Love makes those throws that, he's supposed to make. I haven't really been impressed with Jordan Love overall, but, he makes the throws when they're there. And I think it was more just the Lions just couldn't really catch up to him. They just couldn't play defense. I know a lot of their starters are out. They just lost cornerback Arnold with out for the season, I think, having surgery. The Lions have some stuff to figure out. They just have not been the same team as they were last year.
Yeah, that's a Thanksgiving classic for you right there. Packers, Lions. Jordan Love looked really good. Josh Jacobs and his return was just a menace in the ground game. And then, losing Amon-Ra St. Brown, that's pretty difficult because that is one of your main offensive pieces / weapons, and they've been without Sam Laporta for a while, and so to see guys dropping off like that for them is pretty unfortunate. they've been dealing with some pretty heavy injuries on the defensive side of the ball, and a red-hot Detroit Lions team who started off the season looking pretty good has come to, unfortunately, a screeching halt at 7-5, and now they've got the Cowboys coming to town, who are on a bit of a roll here in this upcoming Thursday, and still unsure of Amon-Ra St. Brown's status. I believe head coach Dan Campbell came out and said that he's a game-time decision, so that would be a huge asset and a huge loss depending on if he plays or not. But, the Packers looking good. They moved to 8-3-1. That NFC North race is getting pretty close.
Yep.
Obviously, Lions are 7-5, so they're still in it. And then you've got the Chicago Bears, who are playing a good brand of football, who are in it. Obviously, the Vikings.
They're technically number one in the NFC right now, the Bears.
Absolutely atrocious football being played from the Vikings, so they're not even in it. But It's kind of a three-team race for that NFC North, and we'll see who can, hang on as the season or as the weeks roll on.
Yeah, and then Dallas hosting Kansas City in their Thanksgiving game. Dak starts the game off with just a brutal pick to Kansas City, and you're like, oh, here we go. Like, we're back to being those Cowboys, and then they just absolutely lock in. Patrick Mahomes played well, threw for 4 touchdowns, but George Pickens, CeeDee Lamb with a great bounce-back game, and Dak Prescott leading the boys. I actually think the defense stepped up, even though they gave up 4 touchdowns. They played a decent game overall, and the Cowboys they're 6-5-1 right now. They are on the outside looking into the playoffs, but essentially the Cowboys can maybe lose one more game, and that's about it. So I think they've got one game to give, and they need to win out. So they've got 5 games left. They can lose one. It'd be ideal to win out. The tie might end up helping the Cowboys, surprisingly, to Green Bay, because let's say the Cowboys get that 11-5-1. Let's say they lose one more game, or it's 11. It'd be 11-5-1. That's a win out. Sorry, 11-5-1. We went out the season. Well, you're going to get in above a team with 11 wins and 6 losses, because you technically don't have 6 losses. So that tie could end up helping us. But yeah, the Cowboys are in a position where every game is a Super Bowl. The players have said that. They understand that. This team's playing with a different energy right now. And I feel extremely optimistic about where the Cowboys are at from where they were beginning the season.
See, it really stinks, because this seems like a completely different team coming out of the bye week than what went in. Just the energy and the level of intensity that the team is playing and performing at feels much higher and better than what we saw at the beginning of the season. But the unfortunate thing is they just put themselves in such a big hole at the beginning of the season, just playing horrendous football, the defense being absolutely atrocious. You just hope that you don't want to say, you just don't want to be too optimistic, right? Like, I don't want to sit here and say the season's over, but it felt like it was over for a while, and then now there's a teeny tiny glimmer of hope, but you just hope that they didn't put themselves in too big of a hole at the beginning of the season to where they kind of knocked themselves out a little bit too early.
You got to assume, too, like, if they were to lose one more game, and one more, like I said, if you lose more than one more game, you're done. Like, your season's over. If you were to lose one more game and they finish the season 10-6-1, it'd be hard to convince me that, there's 4 teams in the wild card that are 10 wins, so they might still get in with just 10 wins. But yeah, the Cowboys, I think for sure they get in if they win out, but it's just a tough task to win out. But it's like we said, every game is a Super Bowl now. They're playing good football. Detroit, you've got to beat Detroit, because that will get you the tiebreaker over Detroit, and also you just got to keep winning.
You got to compile those wins, baby.
Yeah, it's got to be short memory. Go out, play your brand of football. The defense has been playing a lot better. We need them to keep it that way. And And yeah, it's going to be a test. We've put ourselves in a really bad position, but I really like Shoddy and I really like the boys right now. I just think they're a different culture than we're used to. And we could be seeing some good things, but also, like we said, we put ourselves in a really bad spot. So it will not be surprising if we do not make the playoffs. It will just be disappointing.
Yeah, because this team feels like they could be dangerous, like they could really do some damage. Obviously, you want to feel good about your team, so people will come on here and say that we're being delusional Cowboys fans, but I mean, who doesn't want to see their team succeed? So,
and also, we don't know who would if we make playoffs. You got to get there. We don't know what would happen after that. We don't know what Dak Prescott's going to show up because we have seen Dak in the playoffs not play very well, which has been his biggest thing. He plays good in the regular season. We'd love for him to be able to prove himself this postseason. So he's playing great football right now, and hopefully he can get these boys into the playoffs. The
weird thing about Dak is the last couple weeks, it feels like he'll have one absolutely atrocious drive where he's making the worst throws and worst reads you've ever seen in the history of mankind, and he'll throw a pick or something like that. But then all of a sudden after that, it's like a switch flips and he just turns into this another level quarterback. I mean, he threw for 320 yards and 2 touchdowns on Thursday. I mean, the only miss was the very first drive where he throws a pick pretty early on that leads to points. But, I mean, after that, he just looked otherworldly, making all the right reads. Malik Davis getting that quick touch for a 43-yard touchdown. No one really saw that coming. Just a quick little gadget play, just give it to him to get a couple yards, let Javonte Williams take some rest on the sideline, and then lo and behold, he's just up there. Makes a man miss, and he's got nothing but open field ahead of him. So that was nice to see, just throwing somebody in there and them getting it done. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb catching 7 balls and getting 112 yards and a touchdown. That's a big one. 9 targets, 7 catches. That's more like what we like to see. We have mentioned drops on here a lot, and so to see him lock in and have a good game is kind of what we're wanting to see, because with George Pickens on the other side, there's no reason that we shouldn't be thrashing defenses the way that we have been this week and last week.
Yeah.
Quinnen Williams looking ridiculous on the run game, and then Logan Wilson too was looking like a good addition. Defensively, it really looked like they kind of made a turn for the better as of the last few weeks, just the way we've been playing. But obviously,
you got to give
in a horrible position.
You got to give Jerry credit. At the deadline, he made some good moves, and this offseason, he made some good moves. It's just the defense looked pretty bad and put us in a bad spot to start the season. The offense had a couple of bad games, but we will see. We're going to keep believing until we're mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, because it's cool in the NFL. Which teams are going in and which teams aren't based on their records, so it's really cool.
And also, here's the other thing, too. I was talking about this with somebody the other day. I think, in the end, we're going to look back at I think we're going to see that Micah Parsons trade was a really, really smart move. I mean,
and here at Under Review, we already think it was.
Yes, I do, but I think everyone else is going to finally look and see the light, because you look at how expensive he was, offloading that big contract. We were able to get a pass rusher back, and then we got a couple picks along with that trade, but that also opened up room to bring in other talent such as Quinnen Williams, Logan Wilson, who we saw us get right before the trade deadline, and we still have that pick in the upcoming draft. So
when you look at it,
I think in the end, getting 5 guys for one is pretty good. Wait, 5?
Yeah, we essentially
Quinn Williams, Kenny Clark, Logan Wilson.
Straight up from the Micah trade, it was basically ended up being Micah Parsons and a second-round pick for Kenny Clark, Quinnen Williams, and a first-round pick. That's essentially how that trade played out. Logan Wilson was for a 7th-rounder, which wasn't part of the Micah deal, but like the ability to sign these guys and pay these guys instead of just having to pay Micah, yes. But I mean, I would say anyone looking at that trade would say it's a win to give Micah in a second for 2 all-pro inside defenders and a first-round draft pick. So yeah, I think it was a win as well. And Micah's having a great season in Green Bay. We just didn't need to be paying 3 guys all of our money because Dak and CD are already getting a good amount. So this allows us to pay some other dudes, hopefully Pickens as well. And I like the way that next season is setting up for sure. Most of these guys are coming back. So we will definitely be watching that. One big upset we got to talk about is Rams, Carolina. Carolina, who knows what they are right now, but they just came in after looking awful on Monday Night Football and completely upset the Rams, 31-28. Matt Stafford had a couple of picks. Everybody said, including us, that he was looking like an MVP caliber player, which he was. Then he had a pretty bad game against Carolina. And, Bryce Young is just the most inconsistent quarterback I've ever seen. But Carolina played a great game against LA.
Their resume being the Panthers is pretty interesting just because I'm just looking at, all the games they've played across the season, and week after week they are just fighting with that 500 line. Like they started out 0-2 and then they went and won. They went 1-2 and then they won. They lost to the Patriots, then they beat the Dolphins, then they beat the Cowboys, and they beat the Jets, then they lost to the Bills, and they beat the Packers, lose to the Saints, and it's just like you're seeing all these random, they're losing to bad teams, but they're beating good teams, and so
it's
you
weird.
Can't really figure out what their brand of football is, but they've just been right there on that 500 line, just barely hanging on, and you'll see Bryce Young, and you're like, dang, he might actually be a good quarterback, and then the next week he'll throw for, 100 yards and 2 picks or something like that. And it's just impossible to figure out what's actually going on with the Panthers. And then the other thing, too, is when Chuba Hubbard got hurt towards the beginning of the season, they threw Rico Dowdle in there, and he is having generational career numbers. And then for whatever reason,
games.
They hand the starting job back to Chuba Hubbard, which doesn't make sense because he's putting up running back 1 numbers. And he did it for a consistent, 3, 4, 5 week basis or whatever it was. And they just handed it back to Chuba Hubbard for what looks to me like no reason at all. But, the Panthers move on to 7-6. Rams fall to 9-3. Still think the Rams are, this isn't us blowing up on the Rams or overreacting, saying that their season's over.
It's the NFL.
These teams are still human. You're going to have a bad week every now and then.
Any given Sunday. I mean, anything can happen. So, it's just one of those things where the Rams were heavily favored and they lost, and it happens, especially with those 12 o'clock games. But, also – the Panthers are a decent team when they are playing their brand of football. It's just when Bryce Young's playing well, they can win these games. It's just you don't know what Bryce Young you're going to get.
It's hard to figure out.
Yeah.
And, hey, they get it done every couple weeks or so. It's literally every other week because it seems like they win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game. So every other week, the Carolina Panthers are nasty.
Yeah.
So hats off to them. If you're playing them on every other week,
we got them on an on week, unfortunately. So
yeah, for whatever reason, they decided to win 2 games in a row rather than
Well, they always beat us for some reason. Yeah. Them and the Cardinals always give us.
We can't play in Carolina for whatever reason. But anyways, here's like to end our shows in under review. Brought to you a quote from the Bill Walsh, and he said, "You fail all the time. That's how you succeed." That's the truth.
Ain't that the truth? We thank you for tuning in this week, and we will see you next week with another episode of Under Review.